$3. The crowd smelled like sweat and cheap cologne. A backroom warehouse on the edge of town, where men laughed too loudly and didn't look each other in the eyes. Cal Hart didn't belong here. He was a rancher, quiet hands, sun-cut skin. The kind of man who fixed fences without complaining and spoke to horses like they were people. He'd come because a deputy he trusted had called him at midnight. Cal, Deputy Raines had said, voice tight, there's a pop-up auction tonight. Not cattle, not equipment. People. We're thin on manpower. I need eyes. I need someone they won't suspect. Cal had stared into the dark of his kitchen. Coffee going cold. People, he'd whispered. Trafficking. Raines said, we need proof, but don't do anything heroic. Cal promised he wouldn't. He lied. Now he stood near the back of the warehouse in an old jacket, hat low, jaw clenched, listening to an announcer with microphone and a grin like a knife. All right, let's keep it moving. Next lot, young, healthy, trained to obey. A metal gate rolled open, and she stepped out. She was small, too small for the oversized gray sweater they'd shoved on her. Her black hair was uneven like someone had hacked it with scissors. Her wrists showed bruises shaped like fingerprints. But what hit Cal hardest wasn't her body. It was her eyes. They didn't plead. They didn't cry. They looked already gone. The announcer tilted her chin up like she was livestock. Imported, he said. No papers. No family. Start the bid at 10. A man in the front shouted, 5. Laughter. Another voice, 3. More laughter. A chance star like a joke. Like a sport. 3. Cal's stomach twisted. He scanned the room for Deputy Raines. He didn't see him, only strangers in shadows. The girl's gaze flickered across faces until it landed on Cal. For the first time, something moved behind her eyes. Fear, sharp and sudden, like a trapped animal recognizing a hand that might either feed or kill. Cal felt his fists tighten. He remembered his mother's voice from years ago, the days she'd taken in a runaway foster kid with nothing but a backpack. Boy, she'd said to Cal, the world doesn't break people all at once. It breaks them a little every day, until someone decides to be the day it stops. The announcer laughed into the microphone. Look at that. $3. Anyone want to beat 3? Cal's mouth went dry. If he did nothing, she would disappear into someone's truck tonight. Forever. If he spoke, he'd be marked, maybe killed, and she'd still be sold. His mind raced. Law, morality, danger. Then his heart made a decision his brain couldn't. Cal lifted his hand. I'll pay. The announcer blinked. What was that? Cal's voice came out low, steady, terrifying even to himself. I'll pay more than 3. I'll pay whatever it takes. A hush fell over the warehouse. The girl's eyes widened like she couldn't believe the sound of a human voice saying whatever it takes. The announcer grinned again. Well, now, we got ourselves a hero. How much you got, cowboy? Cal reached into his pocket. He pulled out the only cash he'd brought, 3 crumpled bills and loose change. $3. The crowd erupted in laughter. But Cal stepped forward anyway, eyes locked on the girl. 3, he said, and I want her released. Right now. The announcer's smile slowly vanished. Then the man beside him, thick neck, snake tattoo, leaned in and muttered something. The announcer's eyes turned cold. You got nerve, the announcer said softly. You know where you are? Cal swallowed. I know exactly where I am. The tattooed man motioned, and 2 guards started walking toward Cal. The girl flinched, her shoulders shrinking like she'd already seen what happens to men who speak up. Cal didn't move. Tell your people, he said to the announcer. I'm not leaving without her. The guard closest to Cal cracked his knuckles, and the announcer raised the microphone again, voice slick. New rule, he said to the crowd. We sell her to the highest bidder, and we break the cowboy for free. The guards grabbed Cal by the arms, and the warehouse lights suddenly blew out. Darkness swallowed everyone. A woman screamed, a gun cocked, and Cal heard Deputy Raines' voice somewhere in the black. Down! A name that was stolen. The darkness wasn't empty. It was alive with footsteps, curses, and the hard scrape of metal against concrete. Cal hit the floor, shoulders slamming down. Dust burst into his mouth. A gunshot cracked. Then another. Sharp flashes briefly revealed chaos. Men scrambling, bodies colliding. The auction stage overturned. Deputy Rain's voice roared. Sheriff's office. Hands up. Cal's heart hammered. He crawled blindly, reaching for the girl, because he could still feel her fingers on his sleeve like a plea written in skin. "Hey!" he shouted. "It's okay, come with me." A hand grabbed his wrist. Too small to be a guard. Her. He pulled her close, shielding her as boots thundered around them. She didn't speak. She shook. Cal tried to guide her toward a side door he'd noticed earlier. His palm found the code handle. Locked. "Damn it," he hissed. The girl pressed her forehead against his shoulder, like she was trying to vanish inside him. Cal whispered, "I'm not letting them take you." Her breath hitched. Then soft, broken English. "Don't die." It was the first thing she'd said. 2 words that carried a universe. Cal swallowed hard. "I won't." A flashlight beam sliced across them. A guard shouted, "There!" Cal spun, putting his body between the light and the girl. "Rains!" he yelled. "Rains! Over here!" Deputy Rains appeared, gun raised, face grim. "Cal, what in God's name?" "I couldn't leave her," Cal said. Rains' eyes flicked to the girl's bruised wrists, her terrified stare. The anger on his face cracked into something heavier, shame. "I told you not to be a hero," Rains muttered. Cal's jaw set. "Then be one for both of us. Get her out." Rains motioned. "Back corridor. Now." They moved fast, down a narrow hall that smelled like damp wood and fear. Behind them, shouts echoed. Someone was screaming in Spanish. Another man cursed in English. The girl stumbled. Cal caught her. He could feel how light she was, like her body had forgotten what food and rest felt like. They burst through an emergency exit into the cold night. Sirens wailed outside, red and blue lights strobing the world like a warning. She squinted at the brightness like she hadn't seen real night sky in a long time. Deputy Rains led them to his cruiser. "Ma'am," Rains said gently, "you're safe now." She stared at him blankly. Safe was a word she didn't trust. Cal crouched to her level. "What's your name?" She hesitated. Her lips parted, then closed. A long beat. Then she whispered, "I forget." It hit Cal like a punch. Not knowing your name wasn't confusion. It was survival. A stolen identity. Cal looked at Rains. "They did that," he said quietly. "They erased her." Rains exhaled hard. "We'll get her help." Cal shook his head. "Not a shelter where she'll be a case file. Not somewhere they can find her." Rains narrowed his eyes. Cal held the girl's gaze. "Do you want to come somewhere safe? A place with open sky. No locks." She looked past Cal at the warehouse, then at the road, then at the police lights. Fear war was something else. Hope, fragile as glass. She nodded once. Tiny, trembling. Rains frowned. "You can't just take her. She's evidence." Cal's voice tightened. "She's a person." "She's both." Rain snapped, then lower. "And if those men find out where she is, they will," Cal said, "no matter what we do. So we do it right." Rain stared at Cal like he didn't recognize him anymore. Finally, he said, "You're going to regret this." Cal opened his truck door. The girl hesitated, then climbed in, curling into the seat like she expected someone to yank her back out. Cal drove. The ranch lay miles away, far past the last streetlight. The roads turned to dirt. The sky widened. In the passenger seat, the girl stared out as if she'd never seen a horizon that didn't end in a wall. When the ranch house appeared, warm lights and windows, a porch swing moving in the wind, she flinched like kindness was another trap. Cal parked and turned off the engine. He spoke softly. "No one will touch you here." Her hands clenched the edge of her sweater. She whispered, barely audible, "Why?" Cal stared at the steering wheel, searching for the simplest truth. "Because someone should have done it for you sooner." She looked at him then, really looked, and tears finally fell, silent and unstoppable, as if her body had been holding them hostage for years. Cal's throat burned. He reached into the glove box and pulled out a legal folder, land deed papers, ranch ownership documents. He'd been planning to meet a developer next week. Sell the place. Move on. Now, he looked at the folder like it was a weapon he could use differently. He said to her, "This land, it's all I have." Her eyes widened. Cal's voice turned iron. "And I'll use it to keep you alive." A car engine sounded in the distance. On Cal's dirt road. At this hour. Approaching fast. They came for her. The headlights cut across Cal's pasture like searchlights. 2 SUVs rolled in slow, confident, like they owned the night. The girl shrank in her seat, panic turning her rigid. "Hide!" Cal said, voice calm but urgent. She didn't move. Fear froze her. Cal reached across gently, guiding her. Inside. Back room. Lock the door. If anything happens, stay quiet. Her lips trembled. "They kill." Cal met her eyes. "Not tonight." She slipped out of the truck, running toward the porch like a deer fleeing hunters. Cal stayed by the truck, hand near the tire iron tucked under the seat. He didn't own a gun. He'd always believed a man shouldn't need one if he lived honest. Tonight, honesty felt like a thin shield. The SUVs stopped near the gate. 4 men stepped out, silhouettes big and sure. One of them wore the same snake tattoo Cal had seen in the warehouse. He smiled like they were old friends. "Cowboy," Tattoo said, voice carrying across the yard. "You made us work for it." Cal didn't back up. "Private property." Tattoo laughed. "You think that sign scares us?" Cal forced his voice to stay steady. "Get off my land." Tattoo strolled closer, hands open. "We just want what's ours." Cal's jaw tightened. "She's not yours." The smile vanished. Tattoo's eyes hardened. "You bought her." "I didn't buy her," Cal said. "I interrupted your crime." Tattoo tilted his head. "Funny thing about crime. Cowboy, it's only crime when someone with power says it is." One of the men opened a duffel bag, pulling out rope. Another held a metal batten. Cal's blood went cold. "You don't want to do this," Cal said. "Sheriff's office hit your auction tonight. They saw faces. They're coming." Tattoo's grin returned, slower. "Then we have to be quick." A voice called from the porch. "Cal." Deputy Raines' cruiser slid into the driveway, tires spitting gravel. Raines stepped out with his gun drawn, face furious. "Hands up," he shouted. Tattoo didn't flinch. "Deputy," he said sweetly, "you're far from town." Raines moved closer, gun steady. "You're under arrest." Tattoo spread his arms. "For what? Trespassing? On whose word?" Raines' eyes flicked to Cal. "Get inside." Cal didn't, because he heard something behind him. A soft creak. The back door. The girl, too terrified to stay hidden, had stepped out onto the porch, drawn by voices. Tattoo saw her instantly. His eyes lit up like a predator spotting prey. "There she is." The girl froze, realizing her mistake too late. Tattoo snapped his fingers. 2 men rushed the porch. Cal sprinted forward. Raines fired a warning shot into the dirt. "Stop." The men hesitated just long enough for Cal to reach the porch steps. But then Tattoo pulled a phone from his pocket and held it up. "One call," Tattoo said calmly. "And your deputy buddy's daughter gets a visit." Raines went pale. Cal's head snapped toward Raines. "What did he say?" Raines' jaw clenched. "He's bluffing." Tattoo chuckled. "Am I? Want to test it." Raines' gun wavered, just a fraction. That fraction was enough. The men surged again. Cal grabbed the girl's arm, yanking her behind him. "Run inside," he barked. She cried out, but she moved, stumbling backward into the house. A baton swung at Cal's head. Cal ducked, felt wind rush past his ear, then swung the tire iron with everything he had. Metal met bone. A man dropped with a choking grunt. Tattoo's smile cracked. So the cowboys got teeth. Cal's chest heaved. "Leave. Now." Tattoo's voice went low. "No, you don't get it." He nodded to the second SUV. The back door opened, and a woman stepped out, Middle-aged, well-dressed, hair perfect, like she belonged in an office, not a ranch road. She walked toward Cal, heels clicking on dirt like she didn't care how absurd it was. Deputy Raines whispered, horrified, "No!" Cal stared. "Who is she?" Raines' voice broke. "County clerk. She handles property filings." The woman smiled politely, holding a folder. "Mr. Hart," she said, "I'm here about your ranch." Cal's stomach dropped. Tattoo leaned in close enough that Cal could smell his breath. "You like paperwork?" Tattoo whispered, "We do too." The clerk opened the folder and showed Cal a document with his ranch name on it, and a signature at the bottom. His signature. Forged. The clerk spoke like she was reading weather. "According to this transfer, your ranch no longer belongs to you." Cal felt the world tilt. Raines hissed, "That's impossible." Tattoo smiled. "Nothing's impossible when the system is for sale." From inside the house, the girl screamed one short, terrified sound, as if she'd seen something at a window. Cal turned and saw a third set of headlights. Not police, not traffickers. A large black truck pulling up fast, with no plates. The ranch was never the prize. The black truck stopped so close the engine vibrated the ground. Its doors opened. Men got out, different from Tattoo's crew. These weren't loud thugs. They were quiet, professional, gloved hands, blank faces, the kind of men who didn't threaten. They simply finished things. Deputy Raines lifted his gun again. "Sheriff's Department. Identify yourselves." One of the men held up a badge too quickly to read. "Federal," he said. Cal's eyes narrowed. "Federal what?" The man didn't answer. He looked at the county clerk. "You did your part?" he asked. She nodded, nervously smoothing her sleeve. "The transfer's filed." Tattoo smiled proud. "Told you the cowboy be generous." Cal's mind raced. They're laundering the ranch through the county clerk. Paperwork makes it clean. Then they bury Cal. Then the girl disappears. No evidence. No land. No witness. The girl's scream echoed in Cal's head. He backed toward the porch, speaking quietly to Raines without turning his head. "They're not federal," Cal muttered. "They're cleaners." Raines swallowed. "I know." Cal's eyes snapped to him. "You know?" Raines' face twisted. "Cal, my captain warned me months ago. Some of the county's been compromised. I tried to do this quietly." Cal's voice turned sharp. "Quietly gets people killed." Tattoo stepped forward, hands open again, almost apologetic. "Listen, cowboy, you made this personal, but it doesn't have to be ugly." Cal laughed once, bitter. "You brought a clerk and fake feds to my home. That's ugly." Tattoo's eyes flicked to the porch. "Bring her out and we let you walk." "Simple." Cal raised his tire iron. "Over my dead body." Tattoo shrugged. "That can be arranged." One of the federal men lifted a silenced pistol. The world narrowed to that small black circle. Cal's heartbeat became a drum. Then a voice came from the doorway. Soft, shaking, but clear. "No." Cal froze. The girl stood in the doorframe. In her hands was the ranch's old flare gun. Bright orange, dusty. Something Cal kept for emergencies with wildfire. Her knuckles were white. Her eyes were no longer empty. They were furious. Tattoo blinked, amused. "Look at that." She learned a new word. She pointed the flare gun at him. Deputy Raines shouted, "No, don't." But Cal saw it. She wasn't trying to win with violence. She was trying to make a choice. To stop being moved like a piece. Tattoo walked forward slowly. "Give it here. You don't know what you're doing." The girl's voice trembled but didn't break. "I know what you do." Tattoo reached for her, and she fired. A screaming red flare exploded into the night, arcing high over the ranch like a burning comet. It lit the whole valley. And then from the ridge beyond Cal's pasture, a chorus of engine sounds answered. Dozens. Not SUVs. Not police. Trucks. ATVs. Ranch vehicles. Neighbors. The ranching community. Men and women Cal had helped over the years. Fixed fences for. Pulled calves for. Shared water with during drought. They were coming because that flare meant one thing out here. Help. Now. Tattoo's smile died. Move! He snapped, suddenly panicked. The federal men shifted, calculating whether to fight or flee. Deputy Raines barked into his radio. All units, respond to Heart Ranch now. Cal stepped in front of the girl, lowering his voice. You did good, he told her. She whispered, I don't want to run anymore. Cal nodded. Then we don't. The first neighbor truck arrived, headlights blasting, horns blaring. Then another. Tattoo backed toward his SUV, face twisted with rage. This isn't over. Cal shouted back. It is if you're smart. Tattoo's eyes locked on the girl, like a promise of future pain. And then he looked at Cal, cold, calculating. You gave her your ranch, Tattoo said, so I'll take something else. He snapped his fingers. One of the federal men aimed at Deputy Raines and fired. Raines dropped to one knee, clutching his shoulder, blood soaking his uniform. Cal surged forward, but Tattoo was already running, disappearing into the SUVs with his crew as the night erupted into chaos. Neighbors shouting, tires spinning, dust clouds rising. Cal knelt by Raines. Stay with me? Raines' teeth clenched. They have my daughter's school, my family. Cal's face went hard. Then we end this right. Not quietly. Publicly. The girl stood behind Cal, shaking, eyes locked on Raines' bleeding shoulder. She whispered, they hurt everyone. Cal looked at her. Not anymore. Raines grabbed Cal's sleeve, voice ragged. Cal, listen, there's a ledger. Names. Locations. If we get it, we can burn the whole network down. Cal's eyes narrowed. Where? Raines coughed. Auction boss keeps it at the courthouse in a locked evidence closet because he thinks no one would look there. Cal felt rage and clarity collide. The girl stepped forward, voice quiet but steady. I can help. Cal shook his head. No, you've done enough. She met his eyes, stronger now. You asked my name, she said. I remember now. Cal held his breath. She whispered, May. The word landed like a sunrise. May, Cal repeated gently. All right. May lifted her chin. If you go alone, you die. Cal stared at the courthouse lights far off in the distance, like a fortress built on lies. He exhaled slowly. Then we go together, he said. The deed of freedom. The courthouse at night didn't look like justice. It looked like stone and silence. Cal parked behind the building where shadows pooled. Deputy Raines sat in the passenger seat, pale from blood loss, arm wrapped tight. You shouldn't be here, Cal said. Raines' mouth curled into a grim smile. And you shouldn't be a hero. But here we are. May sat in the back seat, hoodie pulled up, breathing steady. She wasn't shaking tonight. She was ready. Cal handed her a small flashlight. Stay behind me. May nodded once. I stay until I must move. They slipped into the courthouse through a side door Raines knew was often accidentally left unsecured. Inside, the air smelled like paper and old floor polish. The hallways echoed with every step, like the building wanted to announce their guilt. Raines pointed with his chin. Evidence closet. End of the hall. Cal's heart pounded. You sure it's there? Raines whispered. He thinks the courthouse is untouchable. He thinks the badge makes him invisible. They reached the door. A keypad. Raines winced, pulling a ring of keys from his pocket. Master key for internal locks, he murmured. But not keypads. Cal leaned closer, inspecting the panel. May stepped forward. Cal blinked. May. She held up her hand. I saw many doors. Her fingers moved fast, pressing numbers with confidence. Cal stared. How do you know? May didn't look at him. They make you learn, so you can serve, so you can open doors and never open your own. The keypad beeped. Green light. The door clicked open. Cal swallowed hard. Inside were shelves of sealed bags, boxes, files. Evidence of crimes that never reached daylight. Raines moved carefully, scanning labels. We need a ledger. Could be black notebook. Could be USB. Cal searched, hand shaking. May's eyes found something on the top shelf, a metal lockbox with a county seal. She pointed. That. Raines reached up, grimacing in pain, but Cal got it first, heavy cold. He set it down, pried it open with a tool. Inside, a notebook and a flash drive. Raines exhaled, almost laughing. We got it. Cal's voice was low. Now we burn them. May stared at the notebook, face tightening as if she could feel every name written inside. Then footsteps echoed from the hall. Slow, deliberate, not a janitor, not random. Someone who knew exactly where to go. Raines' face drained. No. The evidence door swung wider, and Sheriff Halvorson stepped in. He was a big man with a friendly public smile and dead eyes in private. He looked at the lockbox, the notebook, the flash drive. Then he looked at May, and his smile returned. Well, the sheriff said softly, look what wandered into my house. Cal stood between the sheriff and May. You're done. The sheriff chuckled. Done? Son, I am the ending. He lifted his gun, not aimed at Cal, aimed at Deputy Raines. You always were a disappointment, the sheriff said to Raines. Digging where you shouldn't. Raines tried to raise his weapon with his good arm, but he was too slow. May stepped forward suddenly. Stop, she said. The sheriff's eyes narrowed like he'd forgotten she could speak. May lifted the notebook. You think she is nothing, May said, voice trembling but fierce. But she remembers. She speaks. She lives. The sheriff smirked. Hand it over. May didn't. She pulled the notebook open and ripped out the first pages. Names, locations, payments, then shoved them into her hoodie. Cal's eyes widened. May! May looked at Cal and said, Truth cannot be locked. The sheriff's smile vanished. He lunged. Cal moved first. Cal slammed his shoulder into the sheriff, driving him back into shelves. Bags of evidence crashed down. The sheriff swung his gun toward Cal. Raines fired. The bullet struck the sheriff's hand. The gun clattered across the floor. The sheriff roared in pain, face twisted with rage. You think you win? He spat. I have friends. Judges. Clerks. Men with trucks and no plates. Cal grabbed the sheriff by the collar and shoved him against the wall. No, Cal said, voice shaking with fury. You had them. May stepped forward, holding up her phone. Cal blinked. You have a phone? May nodded. I took from office. Tonight. Deputy Raines stared. May, what did you do? May's thumb tapped the screen. A red dot glowed. Recording. May said calm as steel, I let him talk. The sheriff went still. For the first time, fear flashed in his eyes. May looked him straight in the face. Say names again. The sheriff tried to move, but Cal pinned him. Raines' voice turned icy. Sheriff Halvorson, you are under arrest. The sheriff laughed bitterly. By who? You? Bleeding out. Raines lifted his radio with shaking fingers. By the state police. By the feds. By every reporter I just sent this file to. Cal stared. You send it? Raines coughed. Before we came in. Insurance. Sirens sounded outside. Real this time. Multiple units. Not just local. May's shoulders finally sagged, like a weight she carried for years slid off. Just an inch. Cal looked at her. May, you saved all of us. May's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. She whispered, You asked my name. That is how I came back. Weeks later, sunlight poured over Cal's ranch like forgiveness. May stood on the porch, holding a legal document. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the sheer strangeness of having rights. Cal sat across from her, with a lawyer and a social worker present. Everything clean, everything lawful, everything honest. The lawyer smiled. This is a protective trust. The ranch remains in Mr. Hart's name legally, but May has permanent residence, financial support, and control over her future. No one can touch her without consequences. May looked at the paper, then at Cal. You give me ranch? Cal shook his head gently. I give you what they tried to steal your life. May swallowed hard. Why? Cal smiled softly. Because the world broke you every day. And I decided to be the day it stopped. May stood, stepping onto the porch, looking at the open sky like it was a new language. Then she turned back, eyes shining. Cal, she said, voice steady, I want to help others. Cal's throat tightened. Then we will. She nodded. We make place. Safe place. Cal looked out at the land. Wide, healing, full of room for second chances. A refuge, he murmured. May smiled. Yes, refuge. And in the distance, beyond the fence line, a dusty truck paused on the road, watching. Cal's smile faded, because even after justice, shadows sometimes linger. And sometimes the final test of freedom is whether you'll protect it when no one's watching.